President Xi Jinping meets Chen Li-wen, leader of Taiwan's largest opposition party, Kuomintang, this morning. Preparations are underway in Pakistan for talks between Iran and the U.S. And the first government official testifies in the hearing of the Wang Fuk Court fire. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. President Xi Jinping has met with Chen Li-wen, leader of Taiwan's largest opposition party, Kuomintang, in Beijing this morning. Zachary Ip reports from Beijing.
President Xi Jinping, who is also General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, met with Chen Li-wen, chairperson of Taiwan's Kuomintang, at about 11 a.m. in the East Hall of the Great Hall of People. The two shook hands and exchanged greetings. This is the first meeting between the leaders of the Communist Party of China and the Kuomintang in nearly 10 years. The two sides then held talks. Xi welcomes Chen and her delegation on behalf of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee. Xi Jinping said the roots of Taiwan compatriots are always on the mainland, and this meeting is of great significance to the cross-strait relations between the two parties. Xi said the world today is undergoing rapid changes, but no matter how the international situation or the situation across the Taiwan Strait changes, the great trend of the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation will not change, and the great trend of compatriots on both sides of the strait getting closer and coming together will not change. Xi said today's world is not peaceful and peace is extremely precious. Compatriots on both sides of the strait are one family. Xi Jinping said to promote the peaceful development of cross-strait relations and enable future generations to share a better future, we are willing to work with all political parties and groups in Taiwan, including the Kuomintang, and people from all walks of life, on the common political basis of adhering to the 1992 consensus and opposing Taiwan independence to seek peace across the Taiwan Strait, seek the well-being for our compatriots, and seek the rejuvenation for the nation. Chen Li-wen said, based on the common political basis of adhering to the 1992 consensus and opposing Taiwan independence, the Communist Party of China and the Kuomintang should jointly promote cross-strait peace. Chen said both sides should transcend political confrontation and jointly rethink and construct a community of shared future for mutual benefit and prosperity across the Taiwan Strait. She said the two sides should seek a systematic solution to prevent and avoid war, making the Taiwan Strait a model for peaceful conflict resolution worldwide. Chen said she hopes that through the effort of both the Kuomintang and the Communist Party of China, the Taiwan Strait will no longer be a focal point of potential conflict nor a chessboard for external intervention. The Taiwan Strait will be a strait connecting kinship, civilization, and hope. Chen Li-wen led the delegation to the mainland for a 6-day visit at the invitation of President Xi Jinping. She has already visited Nanjing and Shanghai since her arrival on Tuesday. Zachary, TVB News, Beijing.
Chen Li-wen described the meeting between the leaders of the Kuomintang and the Chinese Communist Party as successful. She also expressed wishes to invite President Xi Jinping to visit Taiwan one day. After meeting President Xi Jinping, Kuomintang chairwoman Chen Li-wen returned to her hotel. When asked about how she felt about the meeting, she responded with a smile and a thumbs up. Chen held a press conference in the afternoon, saying the meeting, the first between leaders of the Kuomintang and the Chinese Communist Party in a decade, unfolded against a backdrop of heightened cross-strait tensions. She says the mainland respects Taiwan compatriots' social system and chosen way of life, which differ from those on the mainland. She says she also hopes Taiwan can recognize the mainland's development achievements. Chen says the meeting proves that the only political basis for cross-strait dialogue is to adhere to the 1992 consensus and oppose Taiwan independence. The Kuomintang needs to prove to Taiwanese young people the practical significance of this consensus. She says we must keep pace with the times in ways that are appropriate for the current conditions, so young people can understand the challenges we face at the moment and how to avoid precipitating wars. She also thanked Xi Jinping for his goodwill, noting that the Chinese leadership is open to dialogue with all political parties in Taiwan. She says she hopes that all political parties in Taiwan should put aside their differences and work together for peace. She also hopes the KMT, if elected to lead the island, can invite Xi to visit Taiwan in the future. Taiwan's broadcaster TVB has quoted veteran political commentator and former chairman of Broadcasting Corporation of China, Zhou Xiaokong, as saying that Xi Jinping has emphasized the 1992 consensus while downplaying political confrontation, suggesting that Chen Li-wen has likely opened the door to peace for Taiwan. Vice President J.D. Vance is on his way to Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, to lead mediated talks with Iran. It comes as a tenuous temporary ceasefire appears to be collapsing. The chasm between Iran's public demands and those from the U.S. and its partner Israel seem irreconcilable. Tracy Furness has more.
Pakistan's capital felt unusually quiet Friday as authorities locked down Islamabad ahead of high-stakes talks between the United States and Iran aimed at securing a lasting ceasefire after weeks of war. Roads lay nearly empty, checkpoints were set up at major arteries, and a two-day public holiday kept residents indoors. Behind the calm, diplomatic activity intensified. Security was tightened, with additional troops and police deployed across Islamabad ahead of the talks between Iran and a US delegation led by Vice President J.D. Vance. UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper delivered a speech as a tentative US-Iran ceasefire faltered after Israel pounded Beirut Wednesday. She called for the full and unconditional reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and end to the conflict.
Because we were not involved in the start of this conflict, but we will work together to support a sustainable end to it. So most important of all for us, that means the restoration of freedom of navigation, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, and getting the global economy moving once more. Because the attacks on international shipping in the Gulf, the effective closure of the Strait, has been deeply damaging for the world.
NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte said the alliance countries are looking to see what they can contribute to secure the Strait of Hormuz.
When it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, it was Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, who took the leadership role here. And he said, we have to bring together a coalition of countries which is able collectively to make sure that the principle of free shipping, of free travel on our seas, UNCLOS, is upheld. And obviously that means with the United States together, discussing the what, the where and the when of the mission. But this is about practical support. It is about, when you take my country, the Netherlands, announcing yesterday, it will probably be about mine hunters, it will be about frigates, it will be about radar technology. And so each country is now looking for what they can do to contribute to this, to make sure that the Strait of Hormuz stays open.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced Israel wants to negotiate with Lebanon over disarming Hezbollah, while keeping up attacks on Hezbollah targets. Danny Zhou reports.
Israel's unrelenting strikes on Lebanon have placed the newly brokered two-week ceasefire between the US and Iran at a risk of collapse. A 13-year-old girl in Beirut captured the moment when she and her father scrambled to hide from the Israeli blast in the streets Wednesday afternoon. The girl's two younger brothers were also startled. After inspecting damage in the capital city, some Lebanese lawmakers criticized Israel for having massacred so many civilians and hitting residential homes. They have also pressed the Lebanese people, including Hezbollah representatives, to return to the negotiation table for talks on protecting the nation from aggression. Israeli assaults have claimed nearly 1,900 lives across the country, with more than 6,000 wounded since the start of hostilities on March the 2nd. Over 1 million residents were forced to flee their homes. Authorities say the death toll has topped 300 people on Wednesday alone. The victims' families clamored their anger towards Israel, vowing they will never surrender, even if Israel kills them. Netanyahu indicated he had ordered his cabinet to unfold direct talks that focus on disarming Hezbollah and establishing peaceful relations with Lebanon. The negotiations, planned in Washington next week, are expected to involve Israeli ambassador to the U.S. Yair Lapid and Lebanese ambassador to the U.S. Nada Hamadeh Mawawad. Meanwhile, Hezbollah lawmaker Ali Fayyad reiterated his group's rejection of any direct talks between Lebanon and Israel and has called on commitment to ceasefire as a precondition before proceeding with any further steps. The US President Donald Trump confirmed he had a phone call with Netanyahu in which he asked Israel to scale back its military strikes to ensure the success of the Iran negotiations set to take place in Pakistan on Saturday. Danny Joe, TVB News.
Back locally, the Legislative Council's Finance Committee has approved $1.8 billion worth of diesel subsidies allocated to commercial vehicles. Timothy Lee has more.
The government has proposed 4 measures to tackle rising fuel prices. They include offering diesel-powered commercial vehicles a $3 per liter subsidy and a 50% discount in government tunnel fees for commercial vehicles. This as some lawmakers question how the scheme can truly benefit motorists. Lawmaker Chan Siew-hong from the Election Committee was concerned how the subsidies might end up in the pockets of oil companies instead of those who are in need. While lawmaker Ng Chao-pei from the Hong Kong Island East constituency stressed he does not want to see fuel suppliers take advantage of the war in the Middle East to make a profit. In response, Deputy Financial Secretary Michael Wong said the government will ensure that the subsidies will only be used for assisting users. Secretary for Environment and Ecology Tse Chun-wan emphasized authorities are keeping track of the global oil market, adding that oil companies will not be able to raise prices in a way that takes advantage of the government's measure. The relief package was approved with the implementation of the measure set to take place as soon as the end of this month. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
At the independent committee inquiry into the deadly Wang Fuk Court fire in Tai Po, government officials took the stand for the first time. An assistant director at the Fire Services Department says it's unlawful that the property management company turned off the main electrical switch for the fire water pump. Testifying under the guidance of Senior Legal Counsel Victor Dawes, Assistant Director of Fire Services Keung Sai-ming says the fire water tank was installed on the rooftop. He stressed that the higher the building, the more vital the fire system becomes. Keung says if one only wanted to stop using the water stored in the fire water tank, switching off the pump is enough rather than turning off the entire power supply for the pump. A property management employee earlier says they switched off the pump's main power under the request of the maintenance contractor. Keung called it a serious mistake and gross negligence. Keung says it is illegal for property management companies to handle fire systems themselves, and it is extremely rare for non-registered persons to do so. Keung reviews the department plans to increase relevant penalties to strengthen deterrence and has suggested legislative amendments requiring prior approval from the Fire Services Department before any contractor shuts down a fire system. As one of the fire contractors for Wang Fuk Court submitted the fire system shutdown notice but did not send personnel to inspect on site, Keung says this constitutes a false declaration and violates the law, noting that the contractor must personally oversee any shutdown of fire systems. Keung says if they receive fire equipment-related complaints, the department will undertake surprise inspections. But for tests involving alarm systems or sprinklers, prior notice may be given so as to not startle the residents. For Wang Fuk Court, Keung admits the department had not increased surprise inspection frequencies despite the ongoing maintenance works. They had planned to introduce contingency measures such as deploying additional patrols by local fire stations. He also admits under the current system, the department assumes other fire installations not mentioned in the notice are functioning properly. That means enforcement relies heavily on the honesty and accuracy of contractors' reports. And still ahead, Kai Tak Hospital, the city's largest, will start providing service from October. Daylight robbery at a bank near police headquarters. Octopus launches ride-hailing service. Welcome back. The new acute hospital at the Kai Tak development area is set to open in phases starting in October this year, becoming the largest public hospital in the city. The hospital's accident and emergency as well as inpatient services will be offered starting in 2028. Timothy Lee reports.
Hong Kong is poised to have an upgrade in its healthcare service sector. Named Kai Tak Hospital, the facility will be the largest public hospital in the city and will gradually replace the more than 6-decade-old Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The first services of the Kai Tak facility will be offered at its specialist outpatient clinic block and oncology block starting this October, which will include follow-up consultation, a family medicine integrated center, as well as blood drawing services. Health authorities estimated that around 2,000 to 3,000 people visit the hospital on a daily basis during the first phase of its opening. They also expect A&E and inpatient services will be available at the new hospital starting in 2028. Dr. Eric Chung, the hospital authority's Kowloon Central Cluster chief executive, said health authorities need to manage and adapt to situations involving patients accidentally visiting the wrong health facility. He stressed outpatient services will still be offered to those who visit Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Spanning 500,000 square meters in gross floor area, the hospital has 2,400 beds and 37 operating theaters. The hospital authority also believes the location of the new hospital grants it ease of access to support the neighboring Hong Kong Children's Hospital. Meanwhile, authorities said Queen Elizabeth Hospital will remain in use as a medical facility after its services have completed their transfer to the new facility. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
A man armed with a suspected firearm robbed a Bank of East Asia branch in Wanchai, making off with around $36,000. The crime scene was just 300 meters away from the police headquarters. Bank surveillance footage shows a black-clad man donning a cap approach the counter holding what appeared to be a handgun. A female customer standing at the counter immediately walked away. The suspect placed the bag on the counter and pointed the weapon at the bank staff. The suspect aimed his weapon around the bank before trying to smash the counter glass panel with a hammer. Another bank staff later placed a stack of cash from a drawer into a bag before handing it to the robber, who fled with about $36,000. The entire heist lasted less than 90 seconds. The daylight robbery unfolded at around 12:30 p.m. at the Bank of East Asia Harbourview Center branch on Gloucester Road, just about 300 meters from the police headquarters. A huge police presence could be seen as investigations continued. Uniformed officers searched through nearby areas, with forensic officers documenting the scene, dusting for fingerprints at the entrance, and removing the shattered counter glass for examination. Around half an hour after the robbery, police recovered the suspect's getaway bicycle outside MRT Center before he entered the MTR station. After combing through surveillance footage with a citywide manhunt, police tracked down the suspect at a fast food outlet in Wanchai shopping mall in Taiwan. At around 2 p.m., he was arrested on suspicion of robbery. The Customs and Excise Department busted an illicit cigarette factory in Fanling and seized raw materials and several related machines worth of over $200 million. More than 30 tons of duty not paid tobacco and over 1 million illicit cigarettes worth around $13 million were seized during the operation. Customs officers conducted a search at the unlicensed facility located in a Fanling warehouse on Thursday, discovering a production chain that supplied the products to local and overseas markets. 5 men and 1 woman were arrested. On April 22nd, payment service provider Octopus will launch a ride-hailing platform that's poised to integrate the city's major taxi fleets and local taxi booking platforms. Starting April 22nd, passengers can hail a ride in the existing Octopus app. This as Octopus is set to unveil its Easy Ride service, integrating 5 major taxi fleets in Hong Kong and local taxi booking platforms. Also joining the league were social enterprise platforms to offer barrier-free hailing services. On the mobile app, passengers can choose among different fleets and vehicle types. They include taxis offering room for extra-large luggage. Riders can pay using their physical Octopus card or through online payment within the app. If a booking is cancelled, passengers will receive an instant refund. And after the taxi e-payment mandate came into force on April 1st, Octopus says it has reached almost full coverage among the taxi trade.
More than 49,000 taxi drivers have registered on the Octopus platform, almost 50,000. More than the estimated 46,000 active taxi drivers in the trade. Bring us close to almost full coverage across the industry. Since the taxi law came into effect, we've recorded a further 74% increase in usage, 115% increase in count, more than double, and a 68% increase in active taxi drivers compared to March.
In June, Octopus will raise the monthly top-up limit from $5,000 to $40,000 for drivers to facilitate their collection of income via Octopus cards. The extent of adjustment will be based on the driver's Octopus wallet tiers. The waiver of bank transfer fees for Octopus app for business will also remain in place. U.S. First Lady Melania Trump is denying ties to Jeffrey Epstein and knowledge of his crimes. Her comments come in reaction to online smears that she was involved with a disgraced sex offender.
I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. Good afternoon.
The First Lady also called on Congress to hold a public hearing centered on survivors of Epstein's crimes.
Numerous fake images.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.